Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for being here to celebrate May Coyiuto's debut YA book. I mean, romance book, right?
YA book.
YA book, yeah. I always get thrown off by the cover. It could be either one. We're so happy that you can make it all the way here to celebrate here at Mysterious Galaxy. We're really fortunate. Behind the scenes, May reached out to me. We're like, oh, heck yes, we would love to have you here in the store. So we're very fortunate. And very fortunate to have again, of course, Tracy Badoa, who's been a great friend of the store ever since Freddy versus the Family Curse. And we just recently celebrated your upcoming, or your last book, A Personal Statement. This is not a personal statement. May is a Chinese-Filipino writer born and raised in the Philippines. She earned her BA in psychology from Pomona College and her master's degree in writing for children and young adults from the New School. As I mentioned, Tracy has been here before many times, and we hope to have you many more. I know we're going to have you again for another YA book, middle grade book. Tracy is a Filipino-American author of books about young people with sunny hearts in a sometimes stormy world. By day, she is an attorney. By night, an author. All the time, though, mommy. Everyone who's tuning in store and virtually, hello. We'll have the author discussion, and if you have any questions that you would like to ask, get them ready for the audience Q&A towards the end of the event. If you're tuning in virtually, we will get to those as well. Just make sure to put those in the Ask a Question section, and I will ask those later on. It is never too late to want to purchase your own copies of the books today. If you're watching virtually and you would like to purchase a personalized copy, please give us a call so we can make sure you get your personalized copy in there. Otherwise, you'll only get signed. All right, thank you so much. Enjoy the event, everyone.
All right, let me scoot up a little bit, make sure the microphone, is it catching me okay? Everything good? All right. I am so excited to talk about this book. When you sent it to me, I tore through it. I had a plane ride, and from start to finish, I was like, I must read this. And we were slightly delayed, and I was like, I'm actually okay with this because I get to keep reading. So you made the airplane delay tolerable. So tell us a little bit about the story. What was your inspiration for it?
Sure. So, Chloe and the Cajun Boys, it's basically a young adult rom-com about a girl in Manila whose dad and auntie set her up on these arranged dates, which that's what Cajun means, and to convince her to stay home for college instead of going abroad in the United States. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I think I did a little bit of digging just to make sure I knew what I was getting into, and I think I read somewhere or heard somewhere that you had been on a couple of these kinds of dates. Yeah. Or if you don't want to share that, that's okay. I remember being asked during my different events, people would be like, so what lies did you tell your parents in preparation for for a personal statement? And I was like, don't get me in trouble. My mom was literally standing right over there. So to not get you in trouble, share your own experience or other experience you've heard of with these dates.
It's funny because my mom's right here too, but
so it's okay. It's if you've heard about it and it's not you, it's a friend.
It's really funny because I've been working on this story for years, but my parents never knew what I was doing. And then it wasn't until I got the book deal where my mom was the first question she asked, what's the title of this story? And then I was like, oh, it's called Chloe and the Cajun Boys. And her first reaction was see, it's a good thing I set you up now. You have a book. So, yeah. But yeah, I've been on these types of situations before. Guys all really nice. We never really clicked, but yeah, it's been a fun. It's I wanted to make a fun premise for someone in high school because Kaishaos usually happen when you're in your mid-20s or 30s, the normal age when parents start to worry. But yeah, so I was what if this happens in high school? I feel that would be a good rom-com, yeah.
So to kind of go into the story a little bit, you mentioned this happens in high school. So can you tell everyone a little bit about why she's going on all these dates in high school as opposed to later?
Mm-hmm. So actually, there are a bunch of readers who were saying that they found this so interesting because usually for I think Asian parents, they don't want you dating in high school, and the dad in this book actually doesn't want Chloe to date and finds her she's too young for any of that. But then I think the main reason that's driving him is I need a reason for her to stay home, and he thinks maybe I'm not a good enough reason, maybe a boy would be. So but yeah, it also like it's a fun premise, but it also allows me to dig deep into this like father-daughter relationship.
Oh, that's so sweet. I definitely, I thought that was a really interesting part of your book because I definitely had the option to go at least like across the country for college, and then my dad's like, "Are you gonna go all the way there? There's like all these colleges right here," and then just like stared at me until I was like, "Oh, okay, all right, I'll stay local." It was great. Everything was great. He's not here, so I can talk about it. So it's all good. Okay, so for our attendees who don't know, I'm trying to do a mix of like if you've read the book or if you have it in hand and you're going to read it right when you get home. Explain kilig. And feel free to use examples from popular media or anything like that if you don't want to do any spoilers from your book.
Sure. Kilig is like it's a big part of the book. It gets mentioned a lot, but I think it's one of my favorite Tagalog words that doesn't have like a direct English translation. But I think it's in like the Oxford Dictionary now, which is very cool. But I think like I'm trying to explain. It's like basically that like butterflies in your stomach kind of feeling when you get excited about. Usually it's like in a romantic kind of situation. So it's like if you and your crush make eye contact, that's like you get kilig from that. Or if someone gives you like flowers, that's kilig. But you can also get kilig from watching media, reading books. So I'm trying to think of an example, like a lot of like K-dramas, like I feel like a lot of people get kilig when their couple finally gets together. I'm a big Gilmore Girls fan, so like any Luke Lorelai stuff, that's when I get kilig. So yeah.
Did that like work its way into the book of like, let me channel Gilmore Girls?
Definitely, I feel like anything I write, yeah.
Nice. Yeah, have you heard from like readers who like are new to the term or like use that term in their reviews or like?
It's so cool. Like when they post, they usually, like some like write like kilig like in the side, and like, oh, that's so. Or there's like a sticker on Instagram that they put there. So yeah,
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, so you can even just tell straight from the cover, but your book features this fantastic cast of characters. So who other than Chloe did you have the most fun writing?
Like I love Chloe, her best friend, and then the guys. But I think the people I really loved writing or felt most natural were like the family members. So her cousin Peter, her dad, and then her auntie were like, I always have fun with their scenes. And the rest of them, I feel like I kind of discover who they are as I write. But then with these family members, I kind of have like, I know what's going to happen to them. Like I know where they're going, yeah.
So I loved Peter. I thought he was a fantastic character. And I always get asked this, so I have to ask everyone else of like, was there anyone in your book that was inspired by somebody you know in real life, or do you kind of take bits and pieces of people?
Fun fact about Peter, he was actually originally just in that first chapter, and he wasn't in the rest of the story. And then I think it was like my agent here, and then I think my editor was also like, you built up your cousin, this annoying perfect cousin so much in his first chapter, and he disappears in the rest of it. So after they made that comment, I was like, oh, let me see how I can like integrate this cousin there. But, yeah.
That's kind of funny how that works. Of like when your readers want like more of something. Was there anything else in your book? Like, I'm curious now. Were there any other characters that kind of like made more of an appearance from your first draft?
Yeah. So the first draft, basically the setup with the guys. There were like 5 guys originally, and they weren't like big. Aside from like the love interest she ends up in the end,
right?
They were all just like she goes on these blind dates and then they disappear from the story. And then when we were revising, I was getting notes that like, oh, I kind of want the guys to be more tied into Chloe's story. Okay. So I think all 3 of them are like very prominent in her whole journey here now. Yeah.
Oh, that's interesting because I could see where you're like, this is too many dates.
Yeah.
To juggle. Like these are too many guys. All right. So what I loved about your characters is that not only are they so much fun to read, but like you see them in the beginning, like in one way, and then I realized like as I was reading by the end that you have like somehow created these very complex characters that are just like so fun to read and they're really relatable. So you mentioned Aunt Queenie, for example, and she was one of the characters that you meet in the beginning, you're like, who is this lady? And then by the end, it like sneaks up on you, like, wow, I really feel for her. So can you kind of go into that of like what drove you to dig so deep into these characters? You mentioned you had some, readers like your agent, your editor who who wanted some of that, but like anything else that you were like, I really want to explore more of these characters.
First of all, thank you. That means a lot coming from you too. But I think what's so fun about writing a rom-com, you can make characters like as quirky as they can be, and like, and also put them in all these like awkward situations, which I had so much fun with. But even though these characters are very quirky and like, I also kept in mind that they're real people, or like they represented a lot of kind of like people I know in real life. Not exactly, but like they're familiar to like the community I came from, and I wanted to make sure that they felt like real people instead of like just caricatures. So yeah, and then I suck at outlining plot, but like but I like doing character sketches before I write. So I think it's important for me to like know what each character wants deep down. So I think I was working towards them, kind of going towards that when I was writing.
That's really interesting that you have that idea of like the character. I'm such a plotter. Like I have everything all set before I start writing. Now I'm curious though, because you mentioned that she went on 5 dates.
Yeah.
And there were only 3 guys.
Yeah.
Do you have like who did you cut?
So
like, who didn't make it? Like who is on like in the recycling bin of your computer?
So there's this part where one of the guys is a fan of this fictional DJ named DJ Tofu.
I did see DJ Tofu.
So DJ Tofu used to be a Kai Chow boy.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah.
Oh,
but he was like a random.
Now I need like side like novellas of like
just
DJ Tofu.
Yeah.
I saw that there was a moment where, because one of the things that I thought was really fun is in your book you kind of mix like actual popular media and like kind of made up media with like, but I read DJ Tofu, I was like, is this a real person?
Yeah, someone like, I think it was the editor who was like, wait, is this, because the rest are real, who is this one? And I'm like, oh, that one is fictional.
Oh, okay. Like, I mean, it's kind of a cool name. Yeah. I wanted to know more. I think, so one of the things that I really appreciated about your book was these little insights that you have into life in the Philippines and then life in the U.S. One of the things, for example, you mentioned the weird pressure on Chloe to write a college essay that paints a picture of poverty in the Philippines and shows how hard it was to come from a third world country. And then you also write about the struggle to feel like you belong in the U.S., like for example with Chloe's dad. So what made you want to touch on these topics? This is like a really kind of fun like YA rom-com book, and I was like, wow, these are some like really sneaky good insights that you kind of weave into the story.
Yeah, I think because like Chloe's main journey is deciding if she wants to go stay home or go to the U.S. And I just really wanted to make sure that it felt like she wasn't going abroad because she hated Manila. Because I feel like a lot of depictions of the Philippines in international media is like not the most positive, and there's still like a very privileged take on like life there. But I feel like it's important that we also have stories like this that show that there's love and like joy also back home.
Right.
And for the dad story, I feel like there's this notion of the American dream. Like everyone goes here from other countries, they like succeed and have like great careers and like great families. But there are also people like her dad who he tried coming here and then was really lonely and like wanted to go back home. So I guess it's just like showing there's like more sides to like the story too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I really love that because it does give like this really good depth to the story. I think it's always worrisome when you're like a writer of color that people are going to look at your book and be like, this is an example of all of life for everyone, everywhere. That's like Filipino or like Chinese Filipino. And I thought it was really nice that you kind of threw in some real like dimension into it. So it wasn't just like
actually I was like really worried about that because it's very rare to see like Chinese Filipinos in like a YA book. So I wrote like this author's note towards the end of our revisions being like this like select perspective does not represent the entire community. And then Tao, my agent, and like the editor replied like, it kind of sounds like you're apologizing before you're even releasing the book. And I feel like there are a lot of books not written by people of color that people don't really expect them to like represent everyone. So we decided not to go with that, which I think was the good decision.
That's really interesting. Yeah. It's one of those kind of odd pressures, I think, especially as a debut where you're already worried that you're like, I've got this book coming out. Yeah. Is everyone going to hate it or are they going to hate me? No one hates you, everyone loves your book. In case you were curious. All right, so there is a very cute scene in the book involving spicy food. Yeah. What's your favorite spicy dish?
I really love Korean tofu. I used to have an Instagram account just dedicated to Korean tofu. It is now gone, but
I was like, used to. Okay. Is there like a favorite restaurant, or do you like explore different restaurants and post their pictures?
I'm like a big fan of BCD, so whenever I'm like here, yeah, I always go there.
All right. See, we were talking earlier about like how cool it would be to have like book events like sponsored by like this like milk tea place or like
sponsored by BCD.
And like this would have been an opportune moment for us to like dig into some spicy tofu. So in addition to the spicy food, music and karaoke are featured in your book. Do you share Chloe's feelings about karaoke, and how did you choose the music that was mentioned in the book?
So Chloe likes being in, like, watching people do karaoke, but hates it if the mic goes to her, which is exactly my experience. And for the karaoke song, I feel like there are so many like go-to karaoke songs for people back home. So I picked like Total Eclipse of the Heart, which, but like I was deciding between like it could be like My Way or like any Bruno Mars song. So like those are like the options I was going with. And then for the music in the book, I think it was also like kind of just like my personal favorites. Like there's a Filipino band called Ben and Ben, which they perform in one of the scenes here, and they're one of my favorite Filipino bands back home. Lots of Beyonce references because I love Beyonce, but yeah, it's all like just kind of like my personal favorites here.
Have you thought about sending any of these artists like a copy of your book?
To Beyonce?
And be like, hey, over here.
Yeah, I'll be and then hi.
Like, hi, you're in my book. I feel like Beyonce's in like everybody's books too.
Yeah.
So she would have like this entire library of like, this is the popular media we created Beyonce. Interesting. That's another like random, like I feel like everyone's like, oh, Filipinos love karaoke. I also do not love when the mic is passed to me. And I remember going to a friend's birthday party and they're like, what do you want to sing? And I was like, oh, I'm good. And the girl after me was like, okay, I'll do a Whitney Houston song. And she killed it. And I was like, I am so glad I did not go, because it would have been.
Everyone who's good at karaoke back home are like really good at karaoke.
Like, really? And they're like, I'm a professional singer. I was like, I sing in the shower. And that's like not the same thing. Okay, so we talked about feeling. Any recommendations for books, TV, or movies other than Gilmore Girls for people who want to capture that feeling?
I read it's her book here, An Liang's recent book, If You Could See the Sun. I think that's her. I think she has a new book out now, but then I read this one recently, and then if you like academic rivals to lovers, such a great book for that. For I think movies, there's a Filipino rom-com that it gets referenced a lot. It's called Got to Believe. It's like I think one of the classics. I'm also thinking of there's one in Netflix. It's called Isa Pa with Feelings, and that's one of my favorite recent Filipino romance movies. So one to like highly recommend.
Yeah. Right. So this obviously just came out, and it's weird that I'm going to ask this because it's like no pressure, but like what's next for you?
Yeah, I'm really just hoping that like I can keep writing, and then I'm working on something that's also with like a Chinese Filipino main character in Manila, but very different from, well, still kind of like comedy and YA, but a bit different from this. But
is it still in like the Chloe universe? Like, do any of your characters make a cameo?
I think I would love to have like one of them be like one of the guys just pop up, but
just like cats like walking in the background. It's like, oh, DJ Tofu's here.
Yeah. He's actually the main character.
Don't do that to me. So I'm gonna like pick it up and be like, where is the DJ Tofu? All right. So I warned her ahead of time that if there was some time, and there is some time, that I was going to do a rapid fire game of kiss, marry, kick to the curb, because the whole point of, the whole part of the book is like, is she going to stay with these guys who are on dates and that kind of thing? And I sent her the very general categories of them, but not who they were. So options are to kiss, marry, or kick to the curb. Hollywood Chris's edition. Chris Hemsworth of Thor, Chris Evans, Captain America, or Chris Pine, Captain Kirk.
I was hoping that Chris Pratt would be there, so there'd be an easy like kick to the curb.
Right? We'll throw him in there.
Sorry.
He might be watching. I don't know. You get an angry DM from Chris Pratt. I'm so sorry.
No, sorry.
So Chris Hemsworth, Chris Evans, Chris Pine. So Thor, Captain America, and Captain Kirk.
Ooh, I would marry Chris Pine.
Okay.
That's so hard.
You can just pick them. Just roll the dice.
I think his Captain America and kick to the curb.
I like the discussion happening. Okay. Heroes edition, so slightly off of this. Jason Momoa as Aquaman, Pedro Pascal from The Mandalorian and The Last of Us, and then Oscar Isaac of Moon Knight. So Jason Momoa, Aquaman, Pedro Pascal, Oscar Isaac.
They're all really hard.
I know, kiss, marry, kick to the curb.
Marry Pedro Pascal.
So you've got kiss and kick to the curb for Jason Momoa or Oscar Isaac.
I think kiss Oscar Isaac and kick to the curb Jason Momoa. That's perfect. Yeah.
I would love if somewhere like
Jason Momoa
and Chris Pratt are sitting like having cocktails and being like, oh, she doesn't like us. Okay, books on screen edition. Robert Pattinson of Twilight. I don't know how to pronounce the last name. Noah Centineo of To All the Boys. And Michael B. Jordan of Black Panther, and apparently Fahrenheit 451, which I didn't realize they made a recent review of. So Robert Pattinson of Twilight, Noah Centineo, and Michael B. Jordan.
Is this like Noah Centineo in To All the Boys I Love,
Yes, not like the recent.
or Noah Centineo in real life?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Oh.
I feel like
I don't want to get it. I'm like trying not to get you canceled. In the movie.
in the movie.
Okay, so in the movie, because that's a hard one too, because then it's like Robert Pattinson of Twilight in the movie.
Maybe marry Noah Centineo.
Okay.
Peter Kavinsky, more specifically.
Okay. I like a specificity.
Kiss Michael B. Jordan.
Okay.
And sorry, I'm Team Edward, but
Okay.
the two stop for me.
Okay. That is fair. Okay. And then the ship edition, Michael from Jane the Virgin, Jess Mariano on Gilmore Girls, and Maddie from 13 Going on 30. And I did really super creepy Twitter research for this on your feed, and I was like, who should I choose? Let me go and stalk you. As we just came off of the other question, I'm so sorry. So Michael from Jane the Virgin, Jess from Gilmore Girls, Maddie from 13 Going on 30.
Marry Maddie.
Okay.
Kiss Jess, and I feel like Michael's been through enough, but yeah.
He really has been through enough. I don't want to spoil it for anyone that's like, oh my gosh. All right, last one. So there's a completely out there one. Kiss Me or Kick to the Curb, music edition. Music from the book edition. Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, and Baby Shark, yes, the cartoon.
Wait, am I killing the? No, am I picking?
You're kicking them to the curb. They're gonna be fine.
Or the Baby Shark is like.
It's okay if you kick Baby Shark to the curb. He'll be fine. Kiss, Mary, Kick to the Curb, Beyonce, Nicki Minaj, and Baby Shark.
Yeah, that's the reason I'm gonna get canceled. Marry Beyonce.
Okay.
I feel like my nephews would kill me if I don't pick Baby Shark.
Okay.
But I feel like I'll kick to the curb Baby Shark. Yeah, just making me not. Her fans scare me, so
Okay.
yeah.
that's good. It's like somewhere Baby Shark's fans that were like. All right, so that's all I had. I'm so sorry that you had to deal with my sheer curiosity for some of these. I think we're ready to open it up for questions from the audience or from online, if anyone has any. Ooh. Back there?
Hey, Well, first of all, congratulations. That's awesome, the debut book. And you mentioned you got some feedback from your editor and agent. I'm curious, between when you think that you started the book and publication date, what was the timeline like?
Oh, I signed with my agent back in September 2018, sorry. And then we got the deal December 2020, and then it got released 2 weeks ago. So that's like how many years in the process? 5-ish years since that first signing.
So did you write the book after you signed with your agent?
I already had a completed manuscript, and then we kept revising until then. Yeah.
And then I saw a question from up here.
Hi.
Me? Oh, okay. So I noticed I'm like this much in the book, and I already noticed that there's like a lot of Tagalog phrases and Tagalog words in there. Were you worried that like, oh, the world is gonna read this? I wonder if they'll get the context and stuff like that. And then you mentioned that like, oh, you revised your author's note because it's like apologizing, and I was like, oh, that's pretty dope, because like, oh yeah, this is our language. So, but in the beginning though, were you worried that you were writing the phrases and the words in Tagalog?
So I think this came there's so many YA books around the time I was pitching this that I saw we're using different languages and also not even italicizing them. So I think that gave me a lot of courage to be okay, I can insert some parts from other languages. I think I was more worried about the fact that I had Tagalog and then Hokkien, which is a Chinese language used also in the Philippines. I think that one I was oh, is it weird if there are two different things? But thankfully I never got any pushback from including other languages here.
Can I get a follow-up
Yeah.
too? For both of you guys? Sure. How was your debut? Like your 18th birthday? Did you celebrate a debut? What was the theme? I'm just being nosy.
That's what the question and
But it was
answer
part
is
of the
for.
story, which I thought that was great because I've never really seen debut on YA books before, so I thought it was so exciting to be spotlighted. So.
Just for, I guess, those who aren't familiar, but Cebu is I guess a version of quinceanera for Filipinos. But it's for your 18th birthday. I was very sure I didn't want one, but my mom, who's also here, she threw me a surprise 17th birthday that was kind of like a debut. And so I was a big fan of LMFAO in high school, and I had no it was a surprise, so they made it a party rock anthem themed.
Oh,
I'm not sure how the theme incorporated it. It's we just kept playing the song. It's oh, this is cool. But yeah, that was
That's
mine.
really smart. It's it's a whole year early. It's you absolutely don't expect it.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. I also didn't really want one, but my mom was like, "You're having one," because it also coincided with my high school graduation. So they're like, "We'll just multi-purpose it." So they rented out a golf club, golf course club, and it had we went and bought dresses and changes of outfits and different tiaras. I'm not a tiara person, but she was like, "You're gonna wear this." But we didn't do all the kind of traditional dances and everything because we just didn't. I didn't know that many people who would be "Hey, you want to come to my debut?" and then do a candles dance. It was just a big party. And it was a lot of fun, and there were 2 outfit changes.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
This is actually from me. What was your motivations into wanting to get into writing to begin with?
Oh, wow. I've been writing, I think, since I was 8 years old, and then it was my mom who she studied literature in college, so I think that's why she made sure all of us were into reading and writing. And then I was a very quiet kid, and then I feel it was only with writing that I could really express myself. So it always was a safe space for me. But I never thought of pursuing it because it wasn't really common for people around me. So it wasn't until after college where I decided oh, maybe I want to try writing for real. Yeah.
And I feel that's still kind of I know I've been seeing a lot more stuff of like advice for authors abroad to get traditionally published in the U.S. Like, what made you want to pursue like?
Yeah, I always thought it was like impossible, but then I think it was just I was like searching like when I was in college, and then there are a lot of things online that said like, oh, they don't really care if you're like based abroad, and then like a visa thing wasn't an issue, and because like I've worked with publishers in the Philippines before, but then I loved working with them, but it was like very you just earn in royalties back home, so I think without the advance payment, it was really hard to like it's harder to get by, but like it's harder even there. So I kind of wanted to see like, oh, maybe I can like reach a broader audience and see how that would be like. But yeah.
Did you try to like pitch this in any like pitch contests, or like, well, how did you?
So I think around the time I was discovering how this process worked was when DB Pit was happening.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a Twitter event where basically writers of color can like pitch their stories, and then I think agents and editors could like scroll through and then like if they want a request. I didn't pitch this in DB Pit, but then I just really found it so cool that like, oh, these are like stories and characters I have not seen before, and then there were a lot of people who are interested in like some stories, and I was like, oh, maybe there's like a market for like people who haven't been represented in like these types of books. Yeah.
Oh, cool. I think that was one of the cool things about writer Twitter was that you kind of see what else everybody is working on. You're like, oh, okay, I can write about so and so. I have a lot of friends who are now writing a lot of like Filipino folklore based like fantasy.
They're so cool, yeah.
I was like, oh, good, because like they're looking out into the world and seeing like, oh well, a lot of different other cultures are doing like having heavily influenced fantasy worlds, and they're like excited about it. So.
This is another one from me. I'm always interested in different countries and cultures in what the literary scene is. I know like there's certain countries that don't really get into sci-fi or fantasy. How would you say the literary market is in the Philippines?
I'm a big fan of this. It's a group called Romance Class back home. So it's a group of like indie published authors who just write like romance stories based in the Philippines. Actually, some of their stories aren't in the Philippines, but then they're all Filipino authors. And what's so cool is like it's headed by this writer who does really well like just self-publishing on Amazon, and then she just like guided all of these like people who want to write romance, and there's like it's a country that's like really loves like being kilig and like all these love stories, so it's just grown into like a really big community. I think that's the group that really like inspired me the most. But I think there are also a lot of authors right now who are like based in Manila and also or in the Philippines and are being published here. So I think there are like 2 books also that are coming out this year, like Market and the Ocean of Stars, and then Squall and Mage is also by someone back home. So I think there are a lot of exciting like things coming up from Filipino authors. Yeah.
Any other questions from yes?
Out of all the characters aside from Chloe, which of the characters is your favorite? Why? And which of the characters was the hardest to write, and why?
I think I like in the other events I would say the cousin Peter, but then I think the dad is also like my favorite, and I would say he's also like the hardest to write because basically I think even though it's like a lot about the boys and then the setups, I think the most important love story of this book is still like between her and her dad, and then I just wanted to make sure like he doesn't express himself. Like I think a lot of stoic Asian parents aren't great at like expressing themselves through words, and I just wanted to make sure that like he still comes off as like a really caring dad, but then it might not be how you expect like a supportive parent to look like in other books and movies. But yeah, I hope he comes across as like a good dad still.
He was the hardest one to write?
I think so, because like I think his scenes made me most excited, but also like scared me the most, because like I was like, oh, I really want to pull this scene off and make sure the emotions work out and everything.
Oh, nice. I think that's why like it's so kind of fun to read the different stories where like the parents actually get featured. Like in a lot of young adult novels, like the parents are just like they're off at work and they never make like an appearance in the book. And I feel like there's like at least this is not a personal statement, and in your book, like the parents were there because I feel like that's, I mean, the way I grew up is like they were always there. Like I couldn't get away. Again, they're on here, so I can say whatever. But so it was like it was odd to me when I was reading like certain contemporary books, and I'd be like, where are their parents? Like, why did you just get in the car at 2 a.m? Like, how could you do this? So like when I was reading your book, I was like, good. Like there's an auntie there, there's dad there, like they know what's up.
Yeah, I think like all those teen dramas, I have to like kind of think like, oh, there's like a different, like a fantasy basically. Like I really like Gossip Girl before, and I was like, that life is not my life. Like I have to like have a suspension of disbelief. Like the parents are gone basically. But yeah, how I grew up, like it's impossible to write like any story at that age where they're not there.
My favorite thing of how I, in my head of like I have to distance it from like my life is when like it's a teen story where the parents are just like gone all the time.
Yeah.
Or if for some reason they get on the bed with shoes on.
Yeah.
No, this is not our lives. You do not represent us. All right. Any other questions from the audience?
Yeah.
Yes.
For the Western reader, when you introduce like the Filipino culture to them, is there one Filipino culture that you felt like, oh, maybe this is too much or it's a little too complicated, so you took it out from the book? If there is, can you give me one example?
Ooh, I don't think I took out something from the book, but the one I was really worried about was there's this part in the book where it goes into like there are some Chinese Filipino families who don't approve of their kids dating like people who aren't Chinese Filipino, and are also, even if like they're also like kind of like also the one them dating like Filipinos. So I really just wanted to be like sensitive when I wrote that and wanted to be delicate, and like honestly at first I was like, maybe I shouldn't address this in the book because I also don't want to offend anyone who's experienced this, or it might come off as like not somewhere that should be in like a YA book. But then I'm really glad it's there though. I feel like it's important to address it if like I was writing something with Chinese Filipino.
I really did like that as part of your book because again, like it really added that sense of you meet the characters in the beginning, you're like, oh, this is really like fun, like I'm just like meeting a couple new people, and then you realize like halfway through the book, you're like, wow, these are all like real, just like very deep characters with their own, they're all doing their own thing, like it all weaves together, but like I thought it added some nice dimension to it. So. Any other questions? All right.
Well, thank you so much, everyone. May, congratulations. We love to celebrate, especially YA authors as well as authors of color. Just this is wonderful that we're getting more authors in this space. We need those stories, especially stories to open our eyes to cultures and how things go. Everyone tuning in, thank you so much. Don't forget, you still have time to get your own signed, personalized copies of the books here today. And in-person audience, thank you for being here. We'll go ahead and start the signing real quick. Thank you.